Hello, everybody. You've tuned in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance, Cops for Kids, subsidiary of the Indiana State Police Alliance. I'm your host, Sergeant Rich Myers with the Indiana State Police Public Information Office. Today, I have a guest. It's a first-time guest, long-time friend, but first-time guest here. Annette Rollman. Thanks for coming in, Annette.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
you being
me,
here.
Rich.
You've had a fun morning already, haven't we?
Yes, absolutely.
Annette is the coroner for Morgan County, and I have never had a coroner here on the Indiana State Police Roadshow. This is exciting.
I'm glad to be the first.
Good to have you here. We're brought to you by Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, and also Tom Trial. He's putting us on the YouTube site each and every week, so I want to thank Tom for what he's doing for us. Coroner's office. How did Annette Rollman decide, hey, I want to do a coroner's job?
Well, Rich, honestly, it was born out of necessity, I guess would be the best way to put it. 18 years ago when I started with the coroner's office, my ex-husband at the time was the elected coroner, and we had no calls in the first 2 months, and I thought, this is the greatest job in the world. He's just going to get a paycheck. And then after about 2 months in, we had 6 calls within a 24-hour period, and one of them was a plane crash. And he said, I'm going to have you help me.
Yeah.
And I went to school.
He didn't have any deputies at
He didn't have any deputies at the time. And I went to school for it and still was not positive that it was what I wanted to do. And then I went on my very first coroner call. It was a fatality accident in our county. And I felt like I had something to give the families in that time. And so I felt like in that moment I realized that it was a gift and that I definitely needed to pursue that and continue to do that job.
So you've been involved for 18 years in this.
This is my 18th year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've been the coroner for Morgan County for how long? This is your second term?
It is my second term. I'm 1 year into 6 months into my second term. So let's talk a little bit about 18 years ago. You went 6 months, you say, without a call? 2 months.
2 months without a call. How long do you go without a call today?
Usually less than 24 hours, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's changed immensely. And what do you see that change? What are you contributing to that to?
You know, our drug overdoses are through the roof.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's what we spend the majority of our time on, is the drug overdoses. Morgan County has a high suicide rate. We also have, in the past, we've had some child fatalities that have taken up some time, but the majority are the drug overdoses.
And that's just not Morgan County. That's everywhere in the nation, isn't it?
It is everywhere in the nation, without a doubt. A lot of counties are dealing with the same issues that we're dealing with in Morgan County. We're seeing a lot of the same drugs. We just had our annual Indiana State Coroner Conference, and it was a lot of discussion on what can we do.
So this, are you finding it's prescription drug? Is it opioids? Is it a combination or what?
It's a combination. For a long time, we had the heroin who made a huge comeback, and so we were seeing heroin overdoses. We're still continuing to see heroin overdoses, but in Morgan County, the trends kind of changed a little bit where they're mixing methamphetamine with the heroin. So they just keep getting smarter and smarter and keep adding different stuff into that needle and in different ways to kill themselves. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of talk about a new drug called carfentanil. I'm sure that you've heard of that. And unfortunately, Morgan County, we just had our first case of that carfentanil.
Now, I know I saw yesterday, or it was on the news today, and this is going to play later, but it was on the news this morning. Monroe County had 10 overdoses in I think it was 24-hour period, and they suspected that some drug had got mixed in with what was sold down there. That's very dangerous because the people don't realize what's being mixed in with this, do they?
They don't. I just had a conversation yesterday. I can't see anyone knowingly going in and buying that drug. I think that, someone decided that they were going to mix something different, but no one's going to knowingly go in and buy an elephant tranquilizer and inject it into their body. I just cannot see that being the case. So that is the big fear. And, Monroe County Monroe County is just the next county south of us.
Yeah.
And there's Bartholomew County's where they've had several overdoses in a 24-hour period. So it can happen anywhere, and can we handle it? That's the big question. You're looking at, we do these mass fatality plans and all of those things. And whoever thought we would have to do a mass fatality plan for drug overdoses, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, because you're thinking plane crash, bus crash, or something like that,
right.
Or a natural disaster, and this is coming along. So let's back up here a little bit. What's the responsibilities of the coroner in the state of Indiana?
So the job of the coroner, it entails actually determining cause and manner of death. So when I go into when someone dies of an unnatural cause, whether it be suicide, accident, homicide, obviously,
right.
Any child death is investigated by the coroner. So we go in and we do an investigation, and then if it's deemed necessary, order the autopsy to be performed by a forensic pathologist. And then our responsibility is to sign the death certificate and make sure that body gets to the funeral home. And
you say anything but a natural death, so a natural death doesn't actually have to be investigated by you?
Some natural deaths do. If they're not under a doctor's care, the majority of our cases are natural deaths.
Okay.
So that we get called on,
right.
Not necessarily coroner calls, but we definitely investigate natural deaths, but just to determine that they are natural.
How many deputies do you have?
I have 6 currently.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's keeping you busy.
It is. We're swamped.
And I know recently you've moved to a new facility, and that was out of necessity, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Morgan County, we were growing, and we had outgrown our space where we were at. It's interesting, when I came into office, I didn't have an office. And so I'd go before the council and ask them for an office, and they kind of laughed at me and said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I need a place to put all this stuff. I don't know what you mean." But in the past, it had been sheriff's deputies or detectives with the sheriff's department that had been the coroner. So they had,
right.
kept
Spaces.
the stuff there. But it was very important for me to separate those two entities so that people didn't misunderstand or make the misinterpretation that the investigation was being performed by the sheriff's department, where in fact it's being performed by the coroner's office. So, but the facility definitely, we didn't have a facility. We were using the hospital's morgue for storage, and then we were transporting to the funeral homes to do the autopsies, and it just was not a feasible situation to continue. And so I'm very fortunate that I have got the facility that I do now.
It's pretty much a state-of-the-art facility, the way I understand.
It is. It's about probably 2,500 square feet. We have a place to park the van inside, which is nice when it snows or, inclement weather. And then we have a autopsy suite, and then we have a pretty nice size cooler that we can house several people in. And that's where where it started coming to light to me that this needed to happen right after I took office, is that we had 6 cases in a holiday weekend.
Wow.
And so we only had space in one cooler for 2. And then St. Francis Mooresville had a facility, has a small morgue there at their hospital where they can house 1. So I'm scrambling for places to put people so that I can do autopsies on Monday morning.
Wow. Well, let's talk a little bit about probably something that I know you're good at, because I've known you for a long time, but just working with the families. This is the lowest time probably of their life, and that they're meeting you. That's difficult, I'm sure.
It is. I have a lot of people ask me, how and why do you do this job and continue to do this job? And that's where I feel like the gift comes for me.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'll go on a call and I'm the one who gets the biggest blessing from the family. It is the most difficult time of their life, and they deserve answers in that situation. And so I feel like it's important for me and important for coroners across the state. They need to know that you care, and they need to know that you are in it for the right reasons.
Right. Obviously.
Unfortunately, the office of coroner has been used kind of as a stepping stone in the past for those who want to run for sheriff or other political offices. And that definitely is not the case for me. It was born out of, the three other people, my three other opponents. I just couldn't imagine, that they would be able to handle those situations. One of them definitely would have, but the rest of them, you just don't know if they'd be able to handle those situations. And I wanted the families in Morgan County to be serviced the way that they should. 5 and 6 phone calls a day, and that's okay with me. I want them to get the answers they deserve.
Well, again, you're listening to the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance. Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the Indiana State Police Alliance. I'm speaking with Annette Rollman. She's the coroner of Morgan County, and very interesting topic, and a lot of people don't realize what goes on with the coroner's office. But you do a lot of investigations on these deaths and have a foothold in a lot of that and see what's going on through the county. We've talked about the drug epidemic that's happened out through the county. I know Senator Merritt has worked a lot with that. Has that helped you out any?
It actually has. I really wish Senator Merritt had a bill go before the House this past session. And, it was my hope that bill would pass. And so what his goal of that bill was to have a definitive cause of death on the cause of death line for it to be the actual drugs listed out. And unbeknownst to me, other counties in the state were putting polydrug overdose or polysubstance abuse, and that be the cause of death, where the actual drugs, if they're not listed out, how can we effectively say, hey, we have a heroin problem,
right,
or we have a morphine problem, we have a fentanyl problem, or we're seeing carfentanil in this area? Senator Merritt, that's his whole goal of that bill, was to be able to data mine that information so that we can say, the southern half of the state is the hot spot right now. And
so you can literally through an autopsy decide what kind of drug that is.
Yes, through the toxicology.
Okay. And
the big thing, and what I think kind of kept it from going through, was the cost of the labs. Well, we're paying for them anyway.
Yeah.
They should be anyway. They should be paying for those labs anyway. When I go on a drug overdose, every single time I go in, whether the person has a needle hanging out of their arm or not, I'm going to do an autopsy on that person.
Mm-hmm.
I can't knowingly put someone in the ground and not know, A, what's in their system, and B, if that's definitively what killed them. So I want to make sure that I have all the answers before I approve the burial or the cremation to happen. So I perform an autopsy of complete toxicology, and then toxicology takes 6 to 8 weeks to get back.
Right.
So, I'm not going to have those answers right away. So that's why it's important for me to go ahead and do the autopsy on them.
Can a person, like you say, possibly have the needle hanging out of them, be a drug overdose? But can that, and I know nothing about this, but can that stop someone's heart and their cause of death actually be a heart attack as opposed to the drug overdose, or is that not possible?
Well, you think, what could be in that needle? Right. That's my whole question. What is in that needle? Could it be nothing, or could it be that they didn't inject it and they died from something else, like you said, like a heart attack or something? It's just like any other case where you have a car accident and witnesses say that the person ran off the road prior to the accident. Well, we're going to do an autopsy on that person to determine, did they have a heart attack prior to the accident, and that's what caused it, because that changes it from a natural to an accidental, or an accidental to a natural death. So, that's why it's important that we look at that. Not only that, but Senator Merritt's, for the bill, to be able to say, I need funding for Narcan because we have a heroin problem in Morgan County. Where's the numbers?
Yeah.
Who's going to provide me with those numbers? Well, he should be able to pull all those numbers from the State Department of Health, and he's not able to do that right now.
So we've got about a minute left here. Give you about 30 seconds. Going to run it again for another term? Is this something that you feel the calling for?
It's actually, the coroner is a term limit. Okay. So I'm in my second term, so I will have to definitely set out for 4 years. Unfortunately, I'm hoping whoever runs after me will definitely keep me on with the coroner's office. Good. Because it is a passion.
Good. We're grooming somebody to come in.
Yes, hopefully.
Well, again, you've been listening to the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance. I've been speaking with my good friend and coroner of Morgan County, Annette Rollman. Annette, thank you for coming up here. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
The Roadshow is brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the Indiana State Police Alliance, and my good friend behind the camera, Tom Trial, putting us on YouTube each and every week. We want to thank him for his support. We want to thank our guest, Annette Rollman, for coming up here today and speaking to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. We'll talk to you again next week. The Roadshow is out.